Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the 13th Annual Chattahoochee Valley Sports Hall of Fame Induction Banquet. Thanks to all of you for being with us tonight, and thank you for your continuing support of the Hall of Fame. We have an outstanding evening planned for your enjoyment, and we'll look forward to the honor that is due the class of 2008. At this time, I'm going to ask you to please rise for the posting of our nation's colors, the playing of our national anthem, and please remain standing for the retiring of the colors. If you'll please stand. Thank you. Please be seated. It is a great privilege and honor to introduce to you the class of 2008. Each inductee will be escorted by cheerleaders from Carver, Columbus, Spencer, Smith Station, and Shaw High Schools. Escorted by Spencer High School cheerleader Erin Harrison, we're pleased to introduce the daughter of class of 2008 inductee B.T. Fowlkes, Mary Fowlkes Curry. Escorted by Smith Station High School cheerleader Taylor Britton, we're pleased to introduce from A.G. Parrish High School and the University of Southern Mississippi, class of 2008 inductee E.L. Moose Godwin. Escorted by Shaw High School cheerleader Dominique Spence, we're pleased to introduce the nephew of class of 2008 inductee George Hamer from Columbus High School and the University of Georgia, Jackie Copeland. Escorted by Spencer High School cheerleader Donyetta Rembert, we are pleased to introduce from Spencer High School and the University of Louisville, class of 2008 inductee Charlie Johnson. Escorted by Carver High School cheerleader Candace Gaines, we're pleased to introduce from Alabama State University, class of 2008 inductee James Patrick. Escorted by Shaw High School cheerleader Dominique Spence, we're pleased to introduce the son of class of 2008 inductee George C. Kid Woodruff, his son, George Woodruff. If you will kindly refer to the programs on the table before you, you will see that we will very shortly begin with the evening with the invocation, followed by the serving of dinner. We'll pause for some 30 minutes for dinner and then reconvene, at which point we'll introduce various notables in the audience, and then the highlight of the evening will be the induction of the class of 2008. At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce to you the senior pastor of St. Luke United Methodist Church, Dr. Hal Brady, for our invocation. Dr. Brady, will you please come forward?
You know, at first when I came here tonight, I thought they were going to give an award for playing third string on the high school B team. But evidently they're not going to do that. So would you join me, please, for prayer? Oh God, you're the source of everything beautiful and good. And it's in you that we live and move and have our being. So it's by your grace that we gather here on this joyful and special occasion. As we gather tonight, we are mindful of outstanding achievement or contribution in the area of Chattahoochee Valley athletics. We're also mindful of the discipline, sacrifice, and hard work that such excellence requires. Then again, we remember the leadership, sportsmanship, entertainment, and pioneering courage of these individuals. And we're so grateful for the recognition, past and present, afforded by the Chattahoochee Valley Sports Hall of Fame. Tonight, oh God, we're especially grateful for these 6 inductees and their families: George Hamer, E.L. Moose Godwin, Charlie Johnson, James Patrick, George Woodruff, and B.T. Fowlkes. May all of us go forth from this evening inspired by their noble examples to make greater contributions in our own areas of life and service. And as always, oh God, we remember those standing guard on freedom's front, those who continue to work for world peace, those who are suffering, and those who are in special need. Amen.
Enjoy dinner, everyone. We will reconvene at about 7:45. Good evening once again, everyone. If you have not completed your dinner, please continue to enjoy it. Again, we welcome you to this special occasion, the honor and recognition going to the class of 2008. Before we recognize their accomplishments, we would like to express our appreciation to various notables in the audience for their assistance in the preparation of this annual induction banquet. First of all, we'd like to express our appreciation to the media. Perhaps this week you've seen the various profiles of our 2008 inductees in the paper. We want to express our appreciation to Kevin Price, Ledger Enquirer sports editor, along with staff writers Troy Johnson, David Sheen, Krista Turner, Luke Breeks, Robert Spruck, and Jim Houston for those profiles of our inductees. Also, I want to express a special note of appreciation to Phil Scoggins and Jack Rogers of WRBL TV3 for their enhancements of the inductee accomplishments throughout the daily news reports. And a very special thanks from me to Phil Scoggins for the production of the inductee videos that you'll enjoy very shortly. If you will, join me in giving these who I've recognized a round of applause. We are pleased to have with us tonight dignitaries from state and city governments. First of all, I don't know where Representative Calvin Smyrie is located, but I know he's here. Calvin, stand up wherever you are. Welcome, Calvin. We also want to recognize the mayor of Smith Station, Alabama, Mayor LaFay Dellinger. Mayor, welcome. Some 13 years ago, a group of local sports enthusiasts gathered to consider how we might recognize those who had contributed to sports from the Chattahoochee Valley. After a series of meetings, the organization we know today as the Chattahoochee Valley Sports Hall of Fame came into existence. That organization consists of 22 committee members, of which 7 serve as an executive board. The organization meets during the months of July, August, and September to elect the inductees. The months of October and November are given to the execution of our annual golf tournament, and the months of December, January, and into February with the preparation for this annual induction banquet. I believe that most all of our committee members are here tonight, and as an expression of a job well done, I would ask you, the audience, to join with me in giving the committee members a round of applause. And committee members, if you'll please stand. Thanks to all of you for a job well done. It is always a treat to have past year inductees gather with us for this annual event. Tonight is no exception. I would like to call out the names of past year inductees, and as I call your name, would you please stand and remain standing until all names have been called. From the class of 1997, Hall of Famer Cecil Darby. From the class of 1997, representing his father, Hall of Famer B.F. Register, his son, Lieutenant General retired Ben Register. From the class of 1998, Hall of Famer James Bubba Ball. From the class of 1999, Hall of Famer Billy Key. From the class of 2000, Hall of Famer Frank Sonny Clements. From the class of 2000, Jack Key. From the class of 2002, Hall of Famer George McCluskey Jr. From the class of 2002, Hall of Famer Hugh Royer Jr. From the class of 2003, Hall of Famer Bill Plager. From the class of 2003, Hall of Famer Herbert Green. From the class of 2003, Hall of Famer Wayne Trawick. From the class of 2004, Hall of Famer Wallace Davis. From the class of 2005, Hall of Famer Debbie Ball. From the class of 2005, Hall of Famer James Redd. From the class of 2006, Hall of Famer T.C. Britton. From the class of 2007, Hall of Famer Doug Key. I hope I have not missed anyone. I have tried to cite, have I missed anybody out there that is a past year inductee? Well, good. Let's give these past year inductees a round of applause. Now it's time for the highlight of the evening, the induction of the class of 2008. Our first inductee was an educator first, named Teacher of the Year at Carver High School in 1961. He served as a mentor and father figure to students, helping many students obtain college scholarships. Known as the father of black football in Columbus, Georgia, he was director of religious education and taught a young adult Sunday school class at First African Baptist Church, was principal of Marshall Junior High School, was a loving father, husband, and grandfather, often giving his parents a ride in his wheelbarrow lined with newspapers that he called his girl mobile. Please direct your attention to the screen.
B.T. Fowlkes was a native of Chattanooga, Tennessee. He received his bachelor's degree from Atlanta University and his master's from New York University. Fowlkes is considered the father of black football in Columbus. He started the football program at Spencer High School while a teacher there in 1930 and is credited with nicknaming Spencer the Green Waves. Fowlkes remained at the helm of Spencer football for a short 7 years, but during that stretch claimed state and national championships. His 1931 team won the state title. Then in 1933, his Green Waves captured not only the state, but the national title. Spencer defeated Austin High School from Knoxville, Tennessee at Memorial Stadium to capture the coveted national championship. Fowlkes posted a record of 32 wins, 9 losses, and 8 ties while at Spencer. In 1937, he left coaching to go into the insurance business. 6 years later, Fowlkes returned to coaching at Radcliffe Junior High School, where he began their football program. In 1944, Radcliffe became a senior high school, the second one for blacks in Columbus. In 1947, Fowlkes led Radcliffe to a 9-1 record and a state championship. He wasn't finished building football programs. In 1956, Fowlkes introduced football to Carver High School, where he coached for 4 years. He is also credited with naming the school the Tigers. Fowlkes moved into administration in 1960, becoming the principal at Marshall Junior High School. Before his coaching career, Fowlkes was the trainer for the Columbus Cardinals baseball team in the 40s. Ladies and gentlemen, the Chattahoochee Valley Sports Hall of Fame is proud to posthumously induct B.T. Fowlkes.
Accepting for class of 2008 Hall of Famer B.T. Fowlkes, his daughter, Mary Fowlkes Curry. Take a look at the camera now. That's good. Thank you. Shall I put this in your chair?
Yeah. Good evening. To Mr. Jim White, Chair of the Selection Committee, all other honorees, friends, elected officials, and my family. This honor has been a long time coming, and it is greatly appreciated. Thank you to the Selection Committee, and a special thanks to Mr. Wallace Davis for sharing pictures and exchanging stories with me at the airport in Atlanta. Pop, as he was affectionately called by Skipper and me, was a well-respected and well-rounded human being. His humble beginnings never held him back. If anything, he worked harder to make life happen. We have all heard stories told by our elders about how many miles they walked to school, passing by other schools on their way to the one school where they were permitted to attend. Well, that was the story of Booker Teleferio Fowlkes. He continued to walk all those miles until he had earned a high school diploma. My reason for sharing his early beginnings is to show that whatever he endured never changed the spirit of the man. It may have changed someone less determined or someone who did not hold the same high values that he had for education. On many occasions when I may have felt that a deed done or a conversation with someone was unfair and biased, he had a standard answer. Don't get angry, teach them. He said, shine your light so that a person in darkness may see. I called him, as I grew older, a Renaissance man. Many of you know about his interest in sports, how dedicated he was to all the young men and women that he coached and taught. You may know that he too was a great athlete, nicknamed Chattahoochee, Choo Choo. During his college days, did you know that he taught chemistry and had a love, getting a little anxious here, for literature, poetry, and music? He taught a young adult Sunday school class. He sang in the church choir, was a deacon, was a member of the YMCA, the Social Club, and Omega Psi Phi. He met the love of his life, my mom, while he was teaching chemistry. I have all the love notes that he wrote to her during their courtship, all written on filter paper, each one folded in a special way. His home was indeed his castle. His backyard, on a very, very, very small scale, rivaled Callaway Gardens. He knew the names of every bird that came to enjoy the beautiful flowers that he so lovingly planted and tended. Roses were his specialty. I admired the way he cared about people. No one who crossed his path was unimportant. He wanted those high school athletes to be successful. He talked to them about being responsible for their actions, keeping their grades up, being a real man, but also being a gentleman. During one period of time, he had a relationship with the coaches at Benedict and Allen University. He was able to get scholarships for many of his boys. However, they still needed more funding. Being a given person, he co-signed a few loans. Of all the young men that he helped, only one did not pay his loan. That's when my mom found out, and that, my friends, is what ended his career as a loan officer. When I returned home from Germany with his two granddaughters, Alice and Susan, dubbed Princess and Gorgeous Girls, his eyes showed a different kind of love. He relished his new name, Grandpa. He frequently gave up his Sunday afternoon sports events to give them a ride in the Girl-mobile, which was a wheelbarrow lined with newspaper. Or he would take them for a ride in his car, pointing out great sites of interest or giving them names of a bird or a tree that may have caught their eye. Pop was a bit sensitive when he first began to lose his hair, until one of those Sunday afternoons, Alice, who was all of 4 years old, asked, "Grandpa, why did your hair wear out?" He chuckled and answered, "That's exactly what happened, little princess. My hair wore out." No more sensitivity about hair loss. He never got to meet his youngest granddaughter, Anne. I'm sure he would have given her a special name. Or his 10-year-old grandson, Trey, who just happens to be a pretty special baseball player. I can just see Pop now when Trey pitches a great game or hits a home run or simply does his best at being a team member. I can hear him say, "That's my boy." He was named the father of black football by one of his players. For me, he was the father of a lifetime. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Curry, and congratulations to the Fowlkes family, one and all. Our next inductee played guard for the University of Southern Mississippi on the 1958 UPS National Championship football team. Selected in 1964 and 1989 to coach the Alabama High School All-Star football games. Selected in 1989 to be guest speaker at Pat Dye's coaching clinic at Auburn University. Coached 25 consecutive football teams without a losing record while averaging 8 victories per year. Coached the 1988 and 89 teams to the Alabama High School State 5A Championship games. Was inducted in 2003 into the Alabama High School Sports Hall of Fame. Would you please direct your attention to the screen?
E.L. Moose Godwin is a native of Selma, Alabama. He graduated from the University of Southern Mississippi in 1959. He played football for USM. His junior year, Southern Miss won the United Press International College Division National Championship. After college, Godwin headed to Washington County, Alabama to teach and coach at Milry High School. In 9 years as head football coach, his teams won 60 games, lost 29, and tied 1. He had equally impressive records coaching Milry's basketball and baseball teams. In 1969, Godwin took the helm of the football program at Smith Station High School. He followed in the footsteps of the legendary T.C. Britton. In fact, Britton handpicked Godwin to replace him. Over the next 6 years, Godwin's teams would post an impressive record of 46 wins and 15 losses. In 1975, Godwin left coaching to go into administration. He was hired as principal at Chattahoochee Junior High School. But the coaching bug bit again in 1981. Godwin returned as head football coach at Smith Station, and what followed was remarkable. The Panthers established themselves as a team to be reckoned with in Class 5A. Godwin led his team to back-to-back state runner-up finishes in 1988 and 89. His 1990 squad advanced to the third round of the state before losing in overtime. Over his 26-year coaching span, Godwin's football teams posted a record of 190 wins, 82 losses, and 2 ties. He was named Coach of the Year 3 times and coached in a pair of All-Star games. In 2003, Coach Godwin was inducted into the Alabama High School Sports Hall of Fame. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight, the Chattahoochee Valley Sports Hall of Fame is also proud to induct E.L. Moose Godwin.
Ladies and gentlemen, class of 2008 Hall of Famer E.L. Moose Godwin. Take a look at the camera over there. Let me shake your hand. That's good.
What a tremendous honor to accept this award tonight. And when you do something that you enjoy, as much as I enjoyed coaching high school football, and to receive an honor for that is quite special. And I want to thank some people that made this possible, Mr. Jim White and his committee for selecting me and deeming me worthy of this award, and Mr. Greg Camp, who served as my mentor during this period and led me up to what I needed to do to get ready for this. I thank Mr. Camp. And from the Smith Station side, I'd like to thank Mike McManus, Johnny Sykes, Dick Key, Max Wilkes, and the Smith Station High School Booster Club. And of course, my family and my friends that are here tonight to support me. Thank you very much. My son drove down from Memphis to be here tonight, and he's at home in the bed with the flu. But the show goes on. He knows that after living with me for many years. As the presentation said, I finished high school at Selma High School, which is A.G. Parrish High School, and went to Southern Mississippi, which was Mississippi Southern at the time, on a football scholarship. We only lost 4 games in the 4 years I played there, with the last team being the national championship team and an undefeated team. And when that was coming to an end, I could not bear the thought of not being around football. Football had been my life. I loved the sport. It fascinated me. It was like a chess game. And I said, I got to coach high school football. So I began to apply for different jobs, and the different demands was put out there and the different things that was expected of me if I took this job as assistant coach, et cetera. And I said, I don't want to be an assistant coach. I want to be a head coach. I was 22 years old and never coached a high school football game, but I wanted to be a head coach. So I found a school in Washington County that had the worst record of anybody in the history of football. They didn't win a game the year before and didn't score but one touchdown. And I think the reason I got the job was because nobody else wanted it. But as I went back 10 years later to speak at a banquet there, 20 years later to speak at the banquet there, the principal that had hired me had since retired, and he introduced me by saying I would like to read the letter that Coach Godwin wrote me and convinced me to hire him as football coach at Milroy High School. And he said he was so optimistic and so determined that he could turn this program around, and he was the most optimistic coach that we interviewed, and so we hired him. And so I knew I wasn't the guy that got the job because nobody else wanted it. They really wanted me. And we went 2-8 the first year, the only losing record I ever had, 5-4 the next, and by the third year we was 9-1. And the expectations were there that you couldn't be a failure then, because the program was in dire straits. And we changed it, turned it around, and had some good teams. And after 9 years, I decided to move on. 1 year at Florenton, I came to Smith Station. Now, my job at Smith Station was completely different from that at Milroy. The established program was there. My job was to maintain a great program that was already there, and that wasn't going to be easy either. And I had my doubters. I had a lot of people doubted where I could do this. Well, after 1 year of a 6-3 record, we reeled off 3 straight 9-1s with a 27-3 record, and we was on our way. And of course, after 6 years, I took the job as principal. I had decided I wanted to be an administrator. But then after I became administrator, I was doing a good job as a principal. I know I was, because I know when I'm doing a good job in something, and most people know when they're doing good jobs. But my heart was still on that field. I knew where my heart was. And after 6 years, in 1981, it presented itself for me to come back to Smith Station and be the head coach and athletic director, and I did that. And we had a tremendous run again. And you got to realize that in the small schools in Alabama, I don't know about Georgia, but when you was the coach, you was the coach. I was telling Coach Patrick about that a while ago. If they had a sport, you coached it. At Milroy, I coached baseball, basketball, football, and track. I was the only coach. If you got the flu, you shut the program down. But it changed, and I had my first assistant coach in 1963. Those were the greatest people in the world because they was willing to buy into what I was telling them. And it was a great bunch of people there, and we turned that program around. But now when I come into Smith Station, I had my doubters. I proved them wrong. The second time around, I was amazed. They didn't have to give me that job the second time. I must have done something right because they gave it to me again. They gave it to me again, and we had a tremendous run. Now, I'm proud of what I've done as a football coach and as a basketball coach. I told Coach Patrick a while ago, he's a great basketball coach. I said, I coached 2 teams at Milroy, 29-2 and 27-2. Little was said about it, but I enjoyed all sports. Well, I began to get a few awards. Even at Milroy, I think I was one of the youngest coaches to ever coach in Alabama High School Athletic Association's North-South All-Star game. I was 26 years old. And the district coaches from Mobile District, including Mobile and Baldwin County, selected me to represent that district as one of the assistant coaches in Tuscaloosa in the All-Star game. And there was a lot of older coaches and great coaches, but they selected me to represent them. That was a great honor. And as I said, I was selected by the people in charge to speak at Pat Dye's high school coaching clinic in '89. And I was doing something that they thought maybe some other coaches could use, something that would help somebody else. And that was great pride to know that you are doing something that they want you to share with someone else. And of course, I was inducted into the Hall of Fame in Alabama High School Hall of Fame, which was a great honor. So I've been rewarded many times over for the great career I had as a coach, but nothing has been more important than being here tonight in the town right across the river from where you live and receive this award tonight. And after all of these years of coaching football and all the honors I've had, this is one of the best I've ever had, and I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Coach Godwin, and congratulations to you and the family. Our next inductee was known as the Georgia Pine. He was taught by Fred Haskins and later became one of the founders of the Fred Haskins Award given to the outstanding collegiate golfer. He won the Triple Crown in 1946 by capturing the National Intercollegiate, Southern Amateur, and All-American golf tournaments. In 1947, won the Georgia State Amateur Tournament, played in the Masters and was a member of the Walker Cup team, won the 1951 and 52 Southeastern Amateur Championships, and was a successful businessman and a devoted family man. Please direct your attention to the screen.
George Hamer is a name synonymous with golf in this area. Hamer was a product of the Saturday morning golf classes taught by pro Fred Haskins at the Country Club of Columbus. Hamer proved to be an invaluable member of his high school golf team. Hamer played on 2 state championship teams at Columbus High in 1940 and 41. After serving in the Army during World War II, Hamer enrolled at the University of Georgia in 1946. Affectionately called the Georgia Pine, Hamer served as team captain on the Georgia golf team. He took medalist honors in 1946 in the Southern Intercollegiate Golf Tournament. That year, he set the golfing world on its ear by capturing 3 major titles within a month's time. He won the NCAA Championship, the Southern Amateur Championship, and the amateur division of the Tam O'Shanter All-American Tournament in Chicago. The year 1947 saw more glorious moments for Hamer. He was selected for the Walker Cup team as an alternate. He was runner-up in the Southern Amateur Championship in Louisville. He captured the Georgia Amateur title at the Country Club of Columbus, beating friend and fellow club member George Sonny Swift to become the first Columbus golfer to win that title. Hamer also played in the Masters tournament in Augusta in 1947. Hamer's accomplishments on the golf course continued after his college days. He won back-to-back Southeastern Amateur Championships in 1951 and 52. He once held the course record at the Country Club of Columbus, shooting a 63. Hamer was a founding member, major contributor, and lifetime supporter of the Fred Haskins Award, given annually to the nation's top collegiate golfer. In 2006, Hamer was inducted into the Georgia Golf Hall of Fame. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight, the Chattahoochee Valley Sports Hall of Fame is proud to posthumously induct George Hamer.
Ladies and gentlemen, accepting for class of 2008 Hall of Famer George Hamer, his nephew, Jackie Copeland.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, and tonight's honored inductees. I'm happy to be here on behalf of my mother's brother, my Uncle George Hamer, and his family. We appreciate this recognition of Uncle George's brilliant golf accomplishments. If there was ever a little boy who had a hero, I was that little boy, and George Hamer was my hero. To briefly describe him would be to say that he was a person with an energetic personality who gave great effort to his golf, his family, and his business. As a coach would say, he was definitely a 110%er. He always knew when George was around, as he'd laugh a lot and good-naturedly poke fun at his friends. He always had something to say to everyone he came in contact with, and he was known for saying what was on his mind. Uncle George was cured of scarlet fever at the age of 10, and Dr. Blanchard recommended that he try to find some outside activity to keep him busy. He chose golf and made an all-out commitment to the sport. Mother said he'd bury tin cans in the backyard and practice putting and chipping for hours at a time. As he developed his game, he was under the watchful eye and instructions of Fred Haskins. In competition, he was playing with a very strong determination to win. He began showing real promise as a player at Columbus High School, where he played on a fine team his senior year and was individual state champion for their classification. In 1941, he entered the University of Georgia and continued to improve under Coach Howell Hollis. In 1943, Uncle George left the University of Georgia to serve in the United States Army during World War II. He became an MP and was part of General Patton's European advancement. In 1946, Uncle George re-entered the University of Georgia and resumed playing on the golf team. That year, the golf team went to Princeton to compete in the NCAA championship. We have a member of that team here tonight, Mr. Jimmy King of Columbus, Georgia, who now lives in Hawkinsville. We also have Mr. Sonny Ellis of Columbus, Georgia, who played in the tournament on the LSU golf team. He now lives in Atlanta, Georgia. Mr. Ellis won the Southern Prep in high school, the Southern Intercollegiate Tournament in college, and was two-time runner-up in the Southern Amateur. That NCAA tournament not only had Sonny Ellis, but other well-known amateurs, Bill Campbell, Charlie Cole, and Gardner Dickinson. Uncle George managed to win that tournament and is still the University of Georgia's only NCAA winner at present. That same year, Mr. Haskins cured a hook Uncle George was having a problem with by taping tees on his golf grips. Sent him to Chicago to play against the country's best, and he wins the tournament. That's some real coaching. Mother kept a family scrapbook which included most of Uncle George's golf activities. One article in the scrapbook covered a tournament in Atlanta called the Druid Hills Open. The tournament was loaded with most of the big-name pros and amateurs of that time. The first 2 days, Uncle George shot a 73-67. The third day, he's paired with Ben Hogan. On number 7 on the front 9, Uncle George hit his drive into a plugged lie. He apparently had some indecision on his rule options as to whether he was entitled to a free drop or a drop with a penalty, and if so, where to drop it. The story has come down through the years, several of them. One of them is that Uncle George asked Mr. Hogan, who didn't say much at all when he played, and he hadn't said anything up until this time, said, Mr. Hogan, don't you think I'm entitled to a free drop from this lie? And Mr. Hogan, under one story, said, big boy, you can hit that ball. Another story said, Mr. Hogan said, well, if it were mine, I'd play it. And the third scenario, which kind of came down through the years in the men's grill, was, young man, you can play it or you can put it in your pocket. No one really knows what was said out there, but something was said. Uncle George decided to play the ball as it was. The ball didn't come out very good. He made an 8 on the hole, finished with a 77. But the fourth day, he came back with a 68 and was low amateur for the tournament. The winner of that tournament was Lou Worsham. He was a pro, and I think he won $2,200. Second place was Jimmy Demerit. The third place was a tie between Ben Hogan and Sam Snead. The fourth low score, 2 shots back of Hogan and Snead, was George Hamer. One of the Ledger writers wrote an article the next week talking about the learning experience George got playing with Ben Hogan. Another article from the scrapbook mentioned that Uncle George spent a week in Atlanta with Bobby Jones training for a national tournament. That had to be a really great experience. Uncle George's golf development led him to a point where he had thoughts of turning pro, but decided to go into business instead. He married Leah Desports in 1948. George Hamer III was born in 1952. Young George is a partner in a very successful computer systems development company called Logical Solutions. When I was about 12 years old, Uncle George took me to one of Mr. Haskins' Saturday morning junior clinics, and I got excited about trying to learn to play golf. Many times Mother would take Mary Frances Calhoun and me to the Lions Club golf course with a few golf clubs and lunchbox, and we'd play all day. As a teenager, a few years later, while working at Uncle George's business to earn money to go to play-in tournaments, I was putting oil in a man's car, and he hollered out the door and said, "Jackie, come in here when you get through. I want to talk to you." I said, "Uh-oh." And I went in there, and Uncle George was hunkered down on his desk, and his glasses down on his nose, had a serious look on his face. He said, "Now that you're playing in tournaments, I want you to learn the rule book backwards and forwards, not for going around calling rules on others, but for your own protection. And if you're playing in match play or medal play, you play as hard as you can play till you're through." When I was a freshman at University of Georgia playing on a freshman golf team, we were playing a practice round, and one of my professors was in the group. And I'd asked him if he knew George Hamer when he was at Georgia. He stopped dead still where he was walking. He said, "Hamer?" I said, "Yes, sir." "I'll tell you what he did. He took off with Harold Crow to Macon to play in a 4-ball tournament. Cut class for almost a week. They won the tournament, but I got him good when he came back. When he got to class, I got everybody settled down, and I said, "Mr. Hamer, I'm not going to ask you where you've been. I read about it in the paper. Congratulations, I'm glad you won the tournament, because if you hadn't, I was going to give you a 0 for every day." He said, if you want to go somewhere again, you come in here and get an excuse. This is not home on the range. As Uncle George reached middle age, he continued to play and practice hitting balls as one of his exercises. When he was about 55 years old, he decided to really improve his physical condition. He went to see George McCluskey at Rehabilitation Services of Columbus. After working out for several months, I ran into Mr. McCluskey, and he said, "I don't know what I'm going to do with your uncle." And I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "Well, he's doing all the workouts at twice my recommended pace, and he's wearing out the machines." As an example of Uncle George's thorough practice methods, my son Stan was playing golf in high school, and Uncle George called and invited him to go to the practice range with him. Stan got real excited and went out there to the practice range, and Uncle George started piling up balls. And Stan asked him what he wanted to do first, and he said, "I just want you to start hitting these balls, and I'm going to go over here and sit in the shade and watch." So Stan hit balls for seemingly hours, but I'm sure it wasn't but maybe an hour. But he got tired, and he said, "Uncle George, what do you think?" And Uncle George came back over there, and he said, "Well, I think when you get out on the golf course, you're not going to get all these good lies you've been rolling these balls up on to hit on the practice tee. You need to know what the ball's going to do when you have a bad lie." He said, "How about hitting the rest of these balls out of these divot holes you've been making?" Stan later told me he thought he'd been through boot camp. Uncle George's approach to the game was very basic. He believed in strong practice habits, practicing enough so your main thoughts when you're over the ball are where and not how, working on the short game, working on the in-between shots, playing the ball as it lies, and knowing the rules. Uncle George's tournament successes touched all levels of amateur golf from local to national. The highlights of his golf career were playing in the Masters and being a member of the Walker Cup team. His competitive experiences included playing with such greats as Bobby Jones, Ben Hogan, and Byron Nelson. His winning was definitely a journey, not a single happening, supported by hours of preparation and hard work. Nobody knows what Uncle George would say if he were up here tonight, but I think he would thank his mother and father for their sacrifices in enabling him to play golf. He'd express his love for his family. He'd thank his teacher, Fred Haskins, and give him all credit for his success. He'd express his appreciation to his friends who recommended him for this honor. He thanked the selection committee of the Chattahoochee Valley Sports Hall of Fame for including him along with these outstanding people. On behalf of the family of George Hamer, we sincerely thank you for this honor.
Thank you, Jackie Copeland, and congratulations to the George Hamer family. Our next inductee was an all-conference football player at the University of Louisville for 3 years, was inducted into the University of Louisville Athletic Hall of Fame, played professional football for the San Francisco 49ers and the Baltimore Colts, became the first African-American University of Louisville graduate appointed by the governor to the University Board of Trustees, formed Active Transportation Company with Wade Houston, becoming the 4th-ranked black-owned firm in the United States. A community leader who has chaired and served on countless boards, has given considerably to worthy charitable causes, scholarships for underprivileged children, food and medicine for the elderly, along with his wife, was presented with the President's Award from the UNCF in 2003 and also honored as Louisvillian of the Year. Would you please direct your attention to the screen?
Charles Johnson used the game of football as a building block to his future. Johnson was a dominating tackle, playing 4 years for Spencer High School. His accomplishments on the gridiron led to both All-State and All-America honors. He had the opportunity to play college ball for several Big Ten schools and even UCLA, but opted to accept a scholarship to the University of Louisville. Johnson had an impressive 4-year career as a Cardinal, making the All-Missouri Valley Conference team. In 1989, Johnson was inducted into the University of Louisville's Athletic Hall of Fame. The pros came knocking in the 1966 NFL Draft. Johnson was selected in the 6th round by the San Francisco 49ers. Among his teammates were John Brody and Billy Kilmer. Johnson played in 29 games over 3 seasons with the 49ers before being traded to the Baltimore Colts, where he finished his professional football career. Johnson's exploits in the business world have been equally impressive. He partnered with Wade Houston, his college roommate, to found a transportation company in 1983. They started out hauling truck parts for Ford Motor Company's Louisville plant. Johnson's company eventually became known as Active Transportation. They landed a major contract to haul new vehicles for Ford and other automakers. At its peak in the late 1990s, Johnson's company had yearly revenues of over $350 million and employed 3,000 workers nationwide. It had become the largest black-owned vehicle transportation company in the country. In 2001, Johnson was named Man of the Year in Louisville by the Advertising Federation. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight, the Chattahoochee Valley Sports Hall of Fame is proud to induct Charles Johnson.
Ladies and gentlemen, class of 2008 Hall of Famer Charlie Johnson.
I didn't bring a speech because I really looking out over this audience just made me feel good. I went to Spencer High School, and Spencer High School was the greatest school in the Southeast. And the reason I'm saying that is that we had a team, on my team alone, we had a team that had 7 people to go into professional football, at least to get a chance. Some of them made it, and some of them have already been inducted. So I feel honored to be here, and I'm thankful that Jim White and the committee selected me and gave me this honor. I really feel good and grateful and to have the opportunity to be here with you guys. Because in my heart, I know how tough it was for us to advance. And as I look out, I see my teachers, I see friends, my wife, people that came from Kentucky, all here because they wanted to be here to congratulate me and the Chattahoochee Valley Sports Authority for electing me as a member. And I'm telling you, we have overcome a lot when I look in this room. And we have a long ways to go. You know, when I was in high school, our books came from Columbus High. We never had grass on our field, our practice field. I guess it made us tougher. I don't know. You know, when you get your knees and elbows scarred up, when you finally get to go to Memorial Stadium, you beat teams by 90-0. And that's what we did. But Columbus, Georgia played a big part in my life. And I'm glad to be back to accept this award. I'm glad to be here to see my teachers, who I felt were the greatest in the world, because they motivated us to do the things that we've done. And then I'm going to close by talking about the great teacher, the one who looks over all of us, the one who has no color, the one who blessed me to come out of this city and to do what I've done. I'm thankful to the Almighty God and His Son, Jesus Christ, who gave me the opportunity to serve Him and to be able to come back here and see a blended situation. Thank all of you for what you are and what you're doing. Just remember, only what you do for Christ that counts.
Thank you, Charlie, for those most meaningful words, and congratulations once again to you and the Johnson family. Our next inductee scored 52 points against Dallas County High School in 1958, a school record, was Coach of the Year for the state of Alabama in 1965 and 66, was undefeated Region 3 AAA champion and Region Coach of the Year in 1975-76, was SAIC tournament runner-up with most wins, 19, in 1982-83, in over 30 years at Fort Valley State. He established basketball camps at A.J. McClung YMCA and Fort Valley State from 1977 to 1986. Please direct your attention to the screen.
James Patrick hails from Uniontown, Alabama. During his senior year in high school, Patrick was the captain of his basketball team, averaging 32 points per game. Patrick's athletic achievements continued in college. He attended Alabama State University in Montgomery, lettering 4 years in track and basketball. Patrick met his future bride Ethel at Alabama State, graduating in 1962. That same year, Patrick received his first head coaching opportunity at Montgomery County High School in Mount Vernon, Georgia. His inaugural year as head basketball coach produced a respectable 17-6 record. In 1963, Patrick landed a teaching and coaching job at the new South Girard High School in Phoenix City. It was an incredible 4-year run as head basketball coach. Patrick's teams won 113 games while losing only 20. His 1965-66 squad captured the state championship on their way to a 45-4 season. Patrick was twice named Coach of the Year. The late 60s saw Patrick leave coaching to work in the business sector. He was the urban program director for the Office of Economic Opportunity, then moved on to work for the Columbus Coca-Cola Bottling Company. In 1971, the call came to get back into the coaching ranks. Patrick was offered the head basketball coaching position at Carver High School. During his 8 years at the Tigers' helm, Patrick's teams posted a record of 126 wins and 46 losses. Patrick's dream of coaching in the college ranks came true in 1982 when he became head basketball coach at Fort Valley State College. His 1983-84 team finished second in the Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Association. It was Fort Valley's first winning season in 30 years. In 1986, Patrick returned to Columbus to become the assistant to Coach Herbert Green at Columbus State University, a position he held for 2 years. During his coaching career, Patrick demonstrated his devotion to the game by establishing 2 highly successful basketball camps, the Meriwether Holland Camp in Columbus and the Big Valley Camp at Fort Valley. Ladies and gentlemen, the Chattahoochee Valley Sports Hall of Fame is proud to induct James Patrick.
Ladies and gentlemen, class of 2008 Hall of Famer James Patrick.
Thank you, Jim. Tonight is a very special night for me, my family, the players that I've coached, and all of my friends. It's an opportunity to join this great class of 2008 and the many others who have been inducted in this Hall of Fame who have contributed so much to athletics in the Chattahoochee Valley area. Every year about this time, I'd look at the paper and I would see the inductees and I'd say, well, you know, I can do that. I did that. My wife would say, why aren't you there? I said, I don't know. About 4 years ago, William Llewellyn came to me and asked for my credentials. So I gave Llewellyn my credentials. After the first year, he said, you made the top 40. I said, great. So the next year, he did the same thing. And I think the third year, which was last year, he said, you missed it by 1 vote. I said, great. So this year, he said, you know, they're going to vote next week. I said, good luck. So after the meeting, I got a call and said, you know, you were selected this year. And I said, great. And so I like to thank the committee for your selection this year. I'd make a mistake if I would not think that it was not divine intervention that I'm here this year. Also, no one could say that they're successful unless you have the right family support. And I had that. My family many times sacrificed their dreams so that I may realize mine. And they're here with me tonight, and I would just like for my family to stand and receive my thanks. Please stand. And we also have a very special friend of the family that's sitting with them is Wanda Sue Lee. and also my extended family who have done so much to help me as I've been here in the city, especially from Phoenix City and all over the place, have come to support me tonight, and I'd just like to recognize them as well. Also have two members of the 1965 and 66 state basketball champion who have come tonight to enjoy this evening with me. We have Claude Snowflakes English, who played at the University of Rhode Island, played for the Portland Trail Blazers, was head basketball coach at Rhode Island University, and also at this time he's athletic director at Park University in Suwanee Mission, Kansas, so Claude English. And then we have Sammy Sims. Sammy played at Villanova University and became a Philadelphia lawyer. He's here in the city now working with the kids over at Carver High School. Also had tremendous support from my church family. And tonight we have my pastor, Reverend Nathaniel Copeland, is here, and the Nichols Chapel family. I'd like for them to be recognized for their support over the years. Also have my fraternity brothers, the Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, who have supported me since I've been in the city. And of course I have Robert Anderson and Meggers, who are also my friends. And Cliff Rutledge, the Kappas, who have really supported me since I've been in this area since 1963, and I'd like to thank them. I also have my business friends who have helped me in so many different ways. We have Elbert Solomon from Americas, Georgia. We have Mark Upshaw from Atlanta, Cleo Childress from here in Columbus, Georgia. And I wish Nancy Bunton was here tonight. I don't think she's here, but many years when I began the Meriwether Holland basketball camp, we didn't have money to really do anything to entice the kids to come. So we gave scholarships to the kids in the community by running a one-on-one basketball tournament. And to get money to do this, Nancy from CB&T gave me money, and so I really appreciate it. I think we have Pino Wales Davis here, who have worked with TSIS, who also have helped us a great deal with our basketball camps. And I have so many friends here that I've never said thank you for your support. So all of those friends out there who have come tonight to just help me and celebrate this induction, please stand and let me just give you my thanks. So wherever you are tonight, just please stand and let me give you my thanks for all of the help that you've given me. Thank you very much. My coaching career began, as the video said, in 1962 down in Montgomery County, Mount Vernon, Georgia. Probably the first game I coached was the most memorable game. We had prepared as best we could for a team from McRae, Georgia Central High School, who was the defending state champions. That night, 15 minutes before the game, we had a young man named Willie Jonah came to me and said, the principal said, put me on the team. I said, can you play? He said, I don't know, but I'd like to try. So I said, well, okay, go tell my equipment manager to find you a uniform. So he found a uniform. About 3 minutes into the game, my center got in foul trouble. I said, Jonah, you're going in. He said, what do I do? I said, well, when the ball is shot and the ball comes off the rim, get your hands on it. So Jonah did that. Every time the ball was shot, Jonah got his hands on the basketball. So he got comfortable with that, and I got comfortable with him doing that. I said, well, Jonah, I tell you what, this time when you rebound, put it back in the basket. So Jonah did, but the wrong thing happened, that he put it in the wrong basket. So I called timeout. I said, Jonah, only put it in our basket. So he went on to have a great year with us. We had a winning season, and of course, I elected to follow my sweetheart to Phoenix City, Alabama, and I took a job at South Girard High School as the head basketball coach at South Girard. When I got to South Girard, all I could hear was the Spencer Green Waves and how they were beating up on South Girard. And then if it was not Spencer Greenwave, it was our young man from Tuskegee, Alabama, Ezekiel Moore. And every time I look up, they would tell me about Ezekiel Moore or Spencer Greenwave. So I said, hey, we're going to have somebody from South Girard that people are talking about. And so we began to work, and we played Spencer. The first, I believe it was the opening game, we played Spencer High School with Otis Six Trunk and Clarence Spencer and Jimmy Johnson and all these great basketball players who finished second in the state that year. So we won the game that night, and the next morning we went to school. Our chemistry teacher, Lester Mason, made a big announcement. He said, you know what? Snow fell in Georgia last night. And so snow did. Snow not only fell in Georgia, but it fell in Alabama as well. And so about 3 years, we had finished second in the district region tournament for 2 years in a row. And the third year, we were determined not to finish second. No one remembers who finished second. So we worked really hard that year, and we were able to win the district and went on into the state basketball tournament. We just so happened to have to play to game Booker T. Washington, the team who had beaten us twice that year. So I was sitting around the hotel that day, and I remember in the SIAC tournament, South Carolina State came in with a red and blue ball. And I thought, we need a blue and gold ball. So I asked the athletic director to go out and get us some blue and gold paint, and we're going to paint us a ball. So we did. So we played the last game tonight, and Booker T. Washington being the home team, they had the final game of the evening. So we painted our ball blue and gold, and we went into the gym just before the game started. And when the game was time to warm up, we went out and we was running this drill where you just bounce it off the glass. And then we went into a little dunking. You could do that before the game, so we were dunking the basketball. And I looked up, and I saw Booker T. Washington. Players had stopped warming up, and they were watching us warm up. I said, well, you know, this game is over. And so we won to beat Booker T. Washington, and we went on from that point to win the state championship that year. Not only were these young men great athletes, but they were great persons and good students. Many of them have gone on and become professional persons. We have lawyers, we have doctors, we have our athletic directors, and many of them are doing very well. And I was very proud of all of them as I look around, and you might have seen Eugene White, who is the superintendent of schools in Indianapolis, Indiana. All of those guys I'm really proud of. And so I spent my 4 years there, and I moved on, as the video said, to a couple other ventures. And then, of course, I don't know, just decided that basketball and teaching was my call. So I went back and went to Carver High School in 1971. However, in 1971, if you remember, was a year of integration. According to the statistics in Columbus, Georgia, the ratio was 70-30. So it meant Carver High School would have 70% white and 30% black. And of course, I had taken a job because Carver was coming off a state championship team, and they had 10 of those players coming back. And so I knew that I would have a very good group of players to work with. But the first day of school, when I looked up, we had only 2 of those players back. The rest of them had been sent to other schools around the city. I had a 5'5" guard and a 6-foot forward, and we had to try to win with that. We did a very fine job. Matter of fact, we played very well, but you know, the height took its toll in the latter part of the game, so we ended up not having a winning season, but we played well. But after that year, we began to get the program together, and I think in 1975, 1976 was our banner year. We were ranked second in the state, and we had one player who was ranked in the top 65 players in the country. However, character comes out when you experience your severest test. So we were tested in the state tournament, and somehow, I guess James Patrick had not really built character as I probably should have. So we played the first game. Of course, we had stayed on Macon Road for most of the morning. We had rented a car from one of the car dealers here in the city, and we couldn't get any further than Macon Road, and we were scheduled to play at 4 o'clock, and it was 2 o'clock before we got to Atlanta. So we were able to win that game. Gary Wilson, one of our better players, carried us that night with 35 points. But the next night we had to play, and of course we had worn our red uniforms, and of course Southwest Macon was the team we played the next day. Their colors was red and blue as well. So the morning we got up and we had to go and wash uniforms and then try to get ready for the game. So it was not usual for the team you're playing to be in the same locker room. So we were in the same locker room with Southwest, and I had no opportunity really, because the players had been up all half the night, and we had to play the next day, and so we wanted to get some rest. So by the time we got to the gym, we wanted to walk through what we was going to do for the game plan that night. And you couldn't walk through your game plan because right on the other side of the locker was the other team. So we had to go into the game unprepared, and I think it took its toll on us. But we did have a great year. We were undefeated in the region, and we had a great team and a great year, and I enjoyed my experience at Carver High School. We had a lot of great athletes, and of course, it doesn't matter how much you know about X and O's. If you don't have any player, you can't win. And so we did have great players and great athletes at Carver, and I enjoyed my experience there. However, I had worked for Coke, and my wife enjoyed the corporate world, so I had promised her that if I didn't get a job in college, in 4 years I would go back to the corporate world. So in 4 years I had some offers, but as they say, you know, you have to be able to make a living. And many of those jobs that I was offered, you couldn't make enough money to really support your family, so I didn't take them. So I went back into coaching to the corporate world, and I stayed there for a year. And I realized that, hey, this is not my calling. Coaching is my calling. Working with young people, trying to help them to build life skills and to help them to be all they could be was my calling. So I decided to go back to Carver, and I coached there for 3 more years. And of course, the principal, Mr. Harry Bunnan, somehow I must have talked to him somewhere in our conversation as we were playing golf. I mentioned something about being an administrator. So he called me in one day. You know, you said you wanted to be an administrator. So you have 1 day to go apply for this assistant principal job. Well, I went down and applied, didn't know whether I was going to get it, didn't even care whether I was going to get it. We were just back from the NC2A tournament in Salt Lake City, Utah. Larry Bird and Magic Johnson had played, and Magic had won the championship, and I was all fired up about coaching again. So I applied for the job, and I got it. So I talked with the principal. I said, look, if I get this job, can I still coach? He said, yes, you can. So I applied, and I got the job. So the next morning, after I got the job, Dr. Nail, the superintendent at that time, made a call to the school, and he said, make sure you tell Patrick that he cannot coach. And so that ended my career as a high school coach. And I stayed in administration for 3 years, and I was at Shaw High School when a young man asked me if I would help him to get a scholarship. I had sent a lot of players up to Morristown College in Tennessee, and so I said, yeah, I can help you. I called the president, and he said, yeah, we're interested in the young man, but you bring him with you. So I got in a car, my wife went with me, and we took him up to Morristown College, and they offered him a scholarship. And before I left, he said, the president said, look, we're looking for a coach, we're looking for a dean of students, we're looking for an athletic director, and you can have all 3 jobs. So that sounded exciting, and I said, okay. So on my way home, I was talking to my wife and my children. My children said, look, Daddy, that's a good job for you, but we aren't going to Morristown. So somehow I agonized over that for a long period of time, and I finally got a call from the athletic director at Fort Valley State University, and he offered me the job. I said, well, is there anybody else in line for this job? He said, no, right now, but we have one other person if you don't want the job, but you need to come talk to the search committee. So I went down and talked to the search committee, and they offered me the job. So I went to Fort Valley as their head basketball coach. And when I went, I found, I guess, a wealth of talent there. And so it was not very difficult for me to put a good team together. But the thing is that they had not won so much. The crowds, they would have the girls' basketball game, and after the girls' basketball game, all the fans would leave. And so we began to put a team together. In our first game, we played the Senegal team from West Africa, and we beat them. So the fans began to come back. So that first year at Fort Valley State, we went into the tournament ranked 5th, and there were a 4-way tie for first place, and we had to play the 4th place team, which Savannah State was the home team, and they had beaten us twice that year. So we employed a high-profile defense against them. We called it the side straddle hop defense, and we just did side straddle hop all game long. They did not know what was happening, and we won the game. So the very next night, we had to play Clark College of Atlanta. They were the #1 team. They had not seen the straddle hop defense at all, so we ran that same defense against them, and we won again. But the problem that happened is that our athletic director really didn't think that we were going to win the first game. So we did not really have a lot of money with us, and we had to live on a pancake and sausage diet. So we ate pancakes and sausage pre-game, post-game, and then we were able to eat in the cafeteria during the day. So by the time we were ready to play the finals, those pancakes and sausages had disappeared, and being that we were employing a high-energy defense, they had no energy to play the finals, so we did the very best we can, and we represented Fort Valley State well, but we just did not have enough energy to win the tournament. I wanted to fast track. I was an old man when I got into college basketball, and I wanted to fast track Fort Valley's basketball program. So we played the next year 5 Division I teams, we played in the SWAC, and I got a call. Well, actually, the athletic director got a call from the coach at Alcorn State University and wanted to know if I was crazy to come down there and play them. I told him no. I'll find out if I'm crazy after we play. And so we did. We went into the SWAC. We played, before we went to the SWAC, we played Delta State University in Cleveland, Mississippi. We beat them. We went over to Jackson State and played them. They beat us in overtime. We went to Alcorn State, and they beat us by 1. We went up to North Carolina A&T. They beat us by 5. We played Georgia Southern. They beat us by 5. We played 6 Division I teams, and we lost none of the games by a score of 5. So we were on our way to building a great program at Fort Valley State. So we wanted to upgrade the program once more, so we scheduled the University of Tulsa in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And, of course, the only reason we got on that schedule because Robert Spivey played for me in high school, and he was Nolan Richardson, assistant coach, and he told Nolan we wouldn't embarrass him. So we took a bus all the way out to Tulsa, Oklahoma to play them. The University of Tulsa was known, that defense was called 40 Minutes of Hell, and that's the defense that he employed. And we thought we were ready for this defense. We went out after 10 minutes, the score was tied 28-all. And then, of course, on the next play of the game, we had, in our practice, we taught the Bill Russell kind of blocking shots. We say you go down the left baseline, you block it with your right hand. You go down the right baseline, you block it with your left hand. So in that particular game, the score was tied 28-28. Tulsa had an All-American, Steve Harris, was playing. I had my center freshman at the basket, and Steve Harris went over and dunked the basketball. So I called timeout. I said, Billy Wayne, why didn't you block the shot? He looked at his hand. He said, Coach, I didn't know which hand to block it with. So I could only say, Billy, let's try to do that again. So instead of 40 minutes of hell, we called 30 minutes of hell. But in the end, we had scored 85 points against the University of Tulsa that year. And I checked the scores for the rest of the year, and none of the other Division I schools scored 85 points against them. Of course, they scored 115 against us. But we had a great year. I enjoyed my tenure at Fort Valley, and, of course, I had 2 sons in high school at that time, and I had enjoyed my tenure at Fort Valley. I had realized my dream of coaching in college, and it didn't matter if that was the end of my coaching career at college, that I would just, bow out and go to some other things that I knew I'd love. But I got a call from Herbert Green. Herbert Green offered me a job as his assistant. I'd been assistant coach once, but on a volunteer basis with Doug Key over Chattahoochee Valley Community College, but not in a paid position. So I took the job with Herbert Green at Columbus College. And not only was I assistant, but I was his friend. Herbert Green taught me a lot about the game at an old age. They say old dogs can't learn tricks, but I learned a few tricks with Herbert Green. I enjoyed my 2 years of coaching with Herbert Green immensely. He was a great friend and has been a good friend of mine since that time. And I really have appreciated my 2 years of assistant coaching with him. And I have enjoyed my years in coaching. It has been a good ride. I hope that I have helped someone along the way. Many of the players that I've had have been back, and they've told me a lot of the things that I've done to help them. I really appreciate them coming back and let me know what I've done to help their lives. That has been my dream all along, is to be able to help young people to be all they can be, and to show them a rope and to help build character so that we can have people who will represent us in this world. We need more coaches who will work with their kids and to get them to understand what life is all about. Because if you don't understand what life is all about now, things will happen later that you certainly won't understand. I thank the committee for selecting me, and also these fine other gentlemen and ladies who are here tonight. And I thank you for coming. Continue to enjoy the night, and God bless you.
Thank you, and congratulations, James Patrick and family. Our next inductee played on the University of Georgia football teams from 1907 to 1911, served as captain of the team in 1911, coached the Georgia football team from 1923 to 1927, co-founded and was the first chairman of the Georgia Student Educational Fund, a provider of athletic scholarships to Georgia student athletes, led the effort to raise funds to build Sanford Stadium in March 1955, was introduced into Georgia's Wall of Fame served in the 82nd Division, where he spent 29 months in France during and after World War I, as well as served as chairman of the Inter-Allied Games following the war. Would you please direct your attention to the screen?
George Kid Woodruff was born in Columbus in 1889. He carved out his niche in University of Georgia football as a player in the early 1900s. Nicknamed Kid because of his small stature, he was considered a brilliant quarterback, leading Georgia's offense from 1907 to 1911. He was captain of the team his senior year. Woodruff was named to the All-Quarter Century team by John Stegman in a book that recounted the early history of Georgia football. After graduating from the University of Georgia, Woodruff returned to Columbus to become a successful businessman. But in 1923, he was lured back to Athens to coach the Bulldogs. He signed a contract with the university to coach the team for $1 a year. Woodruff had spent time in Indiana watching Notre Dame football. During his coaching tenure at Georgia, he installed the Notre Dame shift into the Georgia offense. Woodruff coached the Bulldogs for 5 seasons from 1923 to 1927. 4 of his 5 teams posted winning records. Woodruff's teams racked up 30 victories, 16 losses, and 1 tie. His 1927 squad was perhaps his best. A season-ending loss to Georgia Tech spoiled a perfect season and denied them a trip to the Rose Bowl. For the next 40 years, Woodruff continued to have a tremendous impact on the University of Georgia. He was directly responsible for the construction of Sanford Stadium and the hiring of Coach Wally Butts. The Georgia practice fields are named after Woodruff. He was also instrumental in bringing the Georgia-Auburn game to Memorial Stadium in Columbus for 42 years. Woodruff organized the Georgia Student Educational Fund and served on the university's athletic board and the Board of Regents of the University System of Georgia. Ladies and gentlemen, the Chattahoochee Valley Sports Hall of Fame is proud to posthumously induct George Kid Woodruff.
Accepting for our class of 2008 Hall of Famer George Kid Woodruff, his son George Woodruff. Look at the camera. Look at the camera.
I didn't meet Charlie until excuse me, until this afternoon. But I made a point to try to get to know folks that big. But when he came up here, he said, "I ain't got a speech," and I just want to tell you, Charlie, I ain't got one either. But I do want to thank everybody for coming out and bestowing this great honor to our daddy. He would be really flattered, and there's no way in the world that I could tell you what he thought about University of Georgia. And I just want to thank everybody in his behalf for electing him to this honor. And would his family just stand up if they can? Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, George Woodruff, and congratulations to the Woodruff family. Ladies and gentlemen, just a thought or two to leave with you as we close the evening. You know, there's at least one graphic measure by which we distinguish the great men and women of the Chattahoochee Valley. We believe that is the Chattahoochee Valley Sports Hall of Fame. While it's physically located in the Columbus Civic Center, perhaps more importantly, it's located in our hearts. Within it are 60 individuals. Tonight, we added 6 more. We received them in large part because they were visionaries of perfection. They acted nobly, they acted with purpose of mind and purpose of body. Whether taken individually or collectively, they have made and left their impression on the Chattahoochee Valley. Before we adjourn, I would ask that you please stand and give one more final round of applause to the class of 2008. Good night, everyone.